We are back. Another week is here, and that means it's time for another look at this week's Indy Power Rankings for the week of July 18th. So now, let's jump right into it and take a look at this week's Indy Power Rankings. As you can tell, I'm right here on Indy Power Rankings, ipr.wordpress.com, and for this week, the People's Champ for the Indy Power Rankings Top 10 is Eddie Rage. And, he, much like other people, shows how international wrestling has become, as he is the first Hungarian wrestler to become the People's Choice, or the People's Champ, which adds him to a list of people that include people from Denmark, Australia, and Israel. And Eddie Rage just shows how talented and how in high demand some talent can be when the market isn't that big. Honorable mention this week goes to Ruby Reyes, as Ruby Reyes is showing potential, and maybe, just maybe, 1 week will be on the Indy Power Rankings Top 10. And now we move forward as we see the honorable mention for me, as in my videos, you only see the top 5, not the top 10. So, honorable mention begins in this order with lowlife Louis Ramos, who, much like we saw last week with Matt Tremont, he is one of the top deathmatch wrestlers in the United States, as he won the Survival of the Sickest tournament for On Point Wrestling last weekend on July 16th. Then we move forward to former TNA World Heavyweight Champion Drew Galloway, who got on this list not because of TNA, but because of his record going 2-0 at the Evolve events this past weekend, when he defeated current Evolve World Tag Team Champions Drew Gulak, who was also in the Cruiserweight Classic, and Tracy Williams, as him and Chuck Taylor become the new tag champions. And he also goes again, challenges the newest signing of NXT in Johnny Gargano, as he defeats Mr. Wrestling, or Johnny Wrestling, also on last Sunday, to go 2-0 and to jump on the list for the first time since I started this, which isn't that hard since I started it last week. Let me know down in the comment section below if you'd prefer me to just graze over the bottom 5, or to actually go in depth with the bottom 5. Number 8 is Jackie Polo. Number 7 is Teddy King. Number 6 is EC3. And much like Drew Galloway earlier, EC3 did not get on this list because of his time in TNA, but instead, it has to do with what he did this week for Imperial Wrestling, as he defeated Abyss and then defeated Moose in the same night, which landed him at the number 6 spot here on the Indy Power Rankings Top 10. And also, if that wasn't enough, number 7, he beat out NWA Bluegrass Heavyweight Champion Teddy King. Now we move forward to number 5, and that is the Shan Shamrock Memorial Cup champion and CZW Wired champion, and possibly either the person who won the 2016 ROH Top Prospect 2015 ROH Top Prospect Tournament. It is Lio Rush. As Lio competed in the Shane Shamrock tournament for MCW and becomes the first person to ever defend the CZW to defend the title, and only the second person to win the tournament more than once. Since he was a defending champion of the Shane Shamrock Memorial Cup, he didn't have to qualify, but then he defeated Jason Kincaid, Flip Gordon, Joe Keys, Sanjay Dutt, and Tommaso Ciampa in the six-way final on 7/16 to become a two-time champion. And his win over Donovan, and though his win against Donovan Dijak at ROH's show did not count towards his win, or towards his rankings, but is the idea that he defeated so many big names that are a part of the MCW banner, and won a tournament for this, becoming the only the second person to win the tournament in the history of that famous company, secured him the number 5 spot this week in the power rankings. Now we move to the Evolve World Champion Timothy Thatcher, who defeated Marty Scurll and TJ Perkins, two of the top wrestlers in the world, and had fantastic matches, as all three of these men are great practitioners. But it was also just the quantity. As this says, it wasn't the quality of the matches, it was the quantity, since he only wrestled 2 matches last weekend that prevented him from being rated higher. But God, if you have some spare time and you could find Thatcher versus Scurll or Thatcher versus Perkins, I guarantee you will not be disappointed. So Chris Hero is rated number 3 this week in the top 10 Indie Power rankings, as he defeated Joseph Connors at the Phoenix events in Yorkshire on the last Friday. He defeated Joe Coffey for Discovery Wrestling and Chris Brooks in IPW UK on last Sunday. And as you see in the last sentence, it will take either a tournament win or a title win for Chris Hero to notch the number 1 position. But either way, 3 big wins put Chris in the top 3 this week. James Ray Dean is number 2 this week, as James Ray Dean is over in Japan and is one half of the NWA Intercontinental Tag Team Champions, and he had a phenomenal week in Pro Wrestling 01 as he defeated Iwakawa on last Tuesday, and his tag team partner Masato Tanaka, yes, that Masato Tanaka, he also defeated his tag team partner Masato Tanaka last Wednesday, Fujita Hayahato on last Thursday, Shogun Okamoto last Friday, or last Saturday rather, and finally Yokoyama last Sunday. That's right. James Ray Dean went 5-0 last weekend to get the number 2 spot on this week's Indie Power Rankings list. And number 1, as it was mentioned in the Chris Hero write-up, it is all 3 of these guys do not hold a title in independent wrestling, but it was just the magnitude of their wins and the overall name value that the defeats brought. So let's just take a look at this. This week, the man who is one half of the Keystone Pro Wrestling Tag Team Champions added another accolade to his list of ever-growing accolades, and that is being number 1 on the Indie Power Rankings, as he beat Roderick Strong, Tommaso Ciampa, and Marty Scurll last weekend on Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, respectively. He beat Marty Scurll at Beyond Wrestling, and Roddy and Tommaso in Evolve. Just the idea that 1 year ago I was talking about how Matthew Riddle was breaking into pro wrestling, and the fact that also you can see up on top that he's that he's only competed in 51 matches thus far and has won an impressive 72% of them. Holy moly, that's a lot. I mean, it just shows either the talent that Matthew Riddle has always possessed, or that sometimes people are just born to be a pro wrestler, and the former MMA star is showing that he is definitely born to do this, as he got 3 big wins this week last weekend against 3 of the top names in independent wrestling to notch himself the number 1 spot for this week, the week of July 18th, in the Indie Power Rankings. If you enjoyed this, let me know down in the comment section below if you would like to see me go a little bit more in depth into not just the top 5, but also the bottom 5 next week when I go through the Indie Power Rankings top 10 list. Once again, till next time, I hope you enjoyed it. And I thank Indie Power Rankings once again for making this list possible, or making this video possible. Check out the description below to visit Indie Power Rankings, ipr.wordpress.com for all your power ranking needs. Till next time, later.